In a week filled with threats of strikes and lawsuits, controversies, and bad press, Canadians were still scoring goals, keeping clean sheets, and making headlines overseas. It's time for another edition of Keeping Up with the Canadians. Let's go. Let's start with Jonathan David, who's back to his goal-scoring ways. The 23-year-old Lille striker scored 3 goals in 2 matches this week, bringing his goal total up to 16 in all competitions this season, and 7 in his last 9 matches. David is second in Ligue 1 scoring, meaning he has more goals than Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, and Neymar this year. We can't do this segment without giving a special shout out to both Alphonso Davies and Ashley Lawrence. The Canadian stars were voted by their peers onto the respective 22-player shortlist for the 2022 FIFPro World 11, and that's some serious respect. FIFA and FIFPro will announce the 2022 Men's World 11 and Women's World 11 on Monday, February 27th at the Best FIFA Football Awards. Let's hope our Canadians make the cut. And if you're not familiar with the name Sabrina D'Angelo, you will be soon. The 29-year-old Welland, Ontario native joined Arsenal in the January transfer window and made her second start for the Gunners, taking on Manchester City in the FA Women's League Cup semi-finals. And guess what? She made 7 stops to register a clean sheet. D'Angelo's Arsenal will take on fellow Canadians Jessie Fleming and Kadisha Buchanan's Chelsea in the Cup final on May 5th. And finally, it's worth quickly mentioning that Canada dropped its roster for the SheBelieves Cup on Monday. Canada are slated to take on the US on Thursday before rounding out the tournament with matches against Brazil and Japan. Now, what exactly those matches look like with Canadian women's national team players participating in protests, well, your best bet is as good as mine. All right, so let's start there. The SheBelieves Cup. It's supposed to be going down this Thursday. Canada is supposed to take on the United States, and by all accounts, that is going to happen. The Canadian women's national team players have come out and said that they will be playing, however, in protest. James, you were on a call with some of the representatives for the women's national team and just getting a sense of the overall mood of the players. Are they going to be playing with, they're going to be giving everything to this game?
Yeah,
what's the sense?
I mean, they're professionals. They will, of course. They did allude to the fact that they are discussing maybe amplifying their message on the pitch with something. Who knows? It could be, let's just speculate, covering up the Canada Soccer logo, a T-shirt when Sinky scores. Mm-hmm. Who knows, right? So Christine Sinclair was speaking today, Sophie Schmidt, Quinn, and Janine Becky were talking, and the words they used right now was exhausted and deflated with the whole process. These are the players, directly involved with these negotiations, and they look tired, quite honestly, and just sick of this whole process. So big concerns there, obviously, but they will play. They did say that they will boycott the next camp in April if they don't get what they want, if they don't see progress in these negotiations. So it's going to be interesting. By that point, of course, they could legally strike as well. So, it'd be easier for them to strike, whereas this time it would have been an illegal strike, which is why the legal action was threatened against them. It's still a mess, of course. They made it very clear it's about more than just pay equity, though. They understand that will probably happen. They're confident that will happen. It's about the support behind the scenes. Janine Becky was talking about how surprised she was how much staff the men had at the World Cup in Qatar, like twice as much as the women would have at a World Cup, for example. And that makes, a good point. Why is that the case? The word disgusted was used when talking about the cuts they're facing this year across the board, not just women. This is age grade, this is men's too. The same with all these new sponsors coming aboard. Why are these cuts happening? So, yeah, it was good clarity and interesting conversation. I'm optimistic that a good result is close at hand. No.
Well, let me ask you. That's the thing. Like, you gotta imagine this has to be really tolling and really taxing on the players' mentality ahead of a game against the world #1 opponent.
They're arch rivals, which is what they said. Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, right? But like I said, they are professionals. They will give everything in that match. I want to mention, by the way, Sophie Schmidt. She spoke and said that she actually spoke to Beth Priestman after this all went down the weekend and said, I want to retire right now. I'm quitting this team. I just can't do this. Sinclair spoke to her and said, listen. She goes, she talked to me and got me off the edge. That's how close I was to quitting this team. But she did announce that she will be retiring after the World Cup. 218 caps. At this point for Sophie Schmidt, one of the best interviews in the team too. So I'm always biased towards Sophie because she's been a great interview over the years. But the end of what will be a great career at the end of the World Cup, thankfully, and not now, because that would have been a real. I mean, as awful as this whole situation is, that would have been a real blight over it.
Yeah, especially for a player of her stature and everything that she's accomplished. But that leads back to sort of why they're so frustrated, because you pointed out yesterday on the chat so eloquently that Canada, the women's national team, have done this all before the men's. And I saw today that Christine Sinclair was asked, why now? Why is this coming to light now? And she bluntly said it's because of the success that the men's national team has had. And how that has now brought all these issues to the spotlight. So they've been fighting this battle for a very long time.
And that's not to blame the men. She's saying we're tight with the men.
Yeah. Yes.
She's happy for the men's success and what they're getting, but they want the same.
Yeah.
Seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
So Sophie Schmidt's been fighting that battle for a very long time, and you're right, it would have been such a bad way to end her career.
Speaking of men, John David, Canadian, international, 2 goals, 3 the last week, 2 in the weekend. He's playing good football, isn't he, Sarah? Yeah. Once again, the World Cup is a distant memory for him, if not for the women players. What's he worth now? I mean, this guy's value is clearly going up just in time for the summer window, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I'm really happy to see that he did have a really bad World Cup, let's be honest, but he bounced back. I think that's the most important thing. When you're looking at really good athletes, one of the things that I look for is their resilience. If they have, whether it's an injury or a bit of a dip in their playing, he did, but now he's come back and he's scoring and playing really well for Lille. So I think it's fantastic. And I think his price tag is going up. I would like to see a move from League maybe to a little bit more of a, whether it's a competitive league or a Champions League team. I'm not quite sure yet, because I still don't think he's not quite up there yet, but I think he could just take a step above just to get to a little bit of a tougher level than Lille, because we have to remember right now Lille is still in 5th as we speak, 5 points behind 4th place. So who knows if they're even going to make the Champions League, and we want him competing in the UCL.
Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, Lille's struggling this year, but Jonathan David, as you guys just saw on that board, he's not, right? If you look at the French Liga scorers, top scorers, he's tied for 2nd right now, and he has more goals than Kylian Mbappe, Lionel Messi, Neymar, and this isn't the first time that he has done this in his career. He's consistently, somehow, some way, finding a way to be one of the top scorers in Liga every single year, despite playing for a club in Lille. While other years they've had success, this year they're struggling, but Jonathan David is still finding a way to keep pushing forward and keep driving that transfer value up for a move that is inevitably I know we talk about it all the time, but this summer he's going to get a move away from Lille to hopefully one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Well, look at the market this summer, right, for teams that need strikers, right? Manchester United will be out for a striker.
Definitely.
Right? Chelsea want a proper number 9. Newcastle probably as well. Tottenham, if they lose Harry Kane to United. Teams like West Ham on the continent. Real Madrid might be looking for, at some point, a replacement for Benzema.
I'm hoping
right?
Barcelona for Lewandowski. Who knows how long
Maybe.
he has.
That's a great point too, right? What if Mbappe does go to Real Madrid, as being rumoured this week? Does PSG need a striker? Big clubs.
Yeah.
The market for strikers is going to be crazy this summer. So right now,